So I had told you earlier that Gandhian techniques of conflict resolution consist of certain techniques, and out of that techniques in the last class we had discussed about fasting and strike, and another two that four techniques, that is the dialogue and negotiation, mediation and reconciliation. So today we'll that discuss the these four techniques. Fasting and strike we had already discussed in the last class, and along with the another four units, it is also contain the topic, and these particularly four units is also a block which specific cases are given that involved conflicts and continue to do so with the exception of first case. Unit 13 that will deal with the that Noakhali situation, which is the remarkable event in this particularly Gandhian approach, where on the eve of partition of India, major riot broke out between different communities in Noakhali, and Gandhi himself was witness to it as he toured extensively in the regions, hoping to achieve and establish peace 1946 to 1947. Similarly, another unit that deals with the Kashmiri and the Northeast conflicts that have been in existence since long. And that means the Kashmir and the Northeast problem, though it has been started, but not yet finished. Similarly, the Unit 15 that deals with the Sri Lanka and Palestine issues, one that ended with violence and the other that is still going on. The Unit 16 that examines in depth, that means the Tibet, Myanmar, and Bhutan issues, and that need an amicable settlement or solution in a non-violent manner. So time and again, these issues have burst into the violent conflicts and caused considerable damage to the local population and also reached the international level due to the intensity of the conflict. So nevertheless, hope remains that these will be solved in an amicable manner. It is quite likely that Gandhian methods and techniques would solve these pending issues. But as the methods suggest, they need to adhere to non-violence with the aim of conversion of the opponent. It is also necessary to emphasize the reliance on the truth in non-violence if peace has to be prevail forever. ଯଦି ଆମେ ଶାନ୍ତି ଚାହାନ୍ତି ତାହେଲେ ଟ୍ରୁଥ୍ ଆଣ୍ଡ ନନ୍ ଭାୟୋଲେନ୍ସ ମାଧ୍ୟମରେ ଆମେ ଗୁରୁତ୍ୱ ଦେବା କିଭଳି ଭାବରେ ପିସ୍କୁ ଆଚିଭ୍ କରିପାରିବା. So now we will start the unit wise that topics. That unit 11 it speaks about the dialogue and negotiation, which are the techniques of Gandhi in his approach to conflict and peace resolution. So the dialogue and negotiation are the two important techniques that Gandhi in his life tried to solve different type of problems in India, and also it is influenced some extent to the world scenario. So dialogue and the negotiation, these are the two instruments through which By using this technique, Gandhiji had also achieved the, the wonderful result in his era, and also this particular technique has its relevance that um, at present also in the that, present scenario, that what are going that among the nations, the conflict among the nations, and that are solved through the dialogue and also negotiation. Sometimes that a third party nation is also inviting to that for conflict resolution, and sometimes United Nations organization also playing a role by using the dialogue and the negotiation to solve the conflict resolution, conflicts and problem. So, so the dialogue and the negotiation, the Gandhian techniques of conflict resolution consist of the techniques that are widely applied and followed to resolve conflict, followed to resolve conflicts. Several techniques are applied, few of which are explained in the Unit 11 and the Unit 12. The Unit 11, which deals with the dialogue and the negotiation, and the Unit 12, that examine in depth the techniques of mediation and a reconciliation. So, in this context of that conflict resolution, two methods so plays a significant role. One is dialogue, and the other is negotiation. So these two methods of communication intended to reduce or even that mitigate, so mitigate that the conflict to considerable extent and bring the negotiating parties together to resolve the important issues. So, what are the important issues and the various cases that Gandhi has used this technique? Let us see. Before we that discuss
Okay, sir, what happened? ପିଲାମାନେ କିଛି ଅସୁବିଧା ହେଲା କି? ପିଲାମାନେ ଶୁଭୁଛି? କୁହ ସାର୍, ସାର୍ କୁହ, ଅଡିଓ ପ୍ରୋବ୍ଲେମ ହେଲା ନା କଣ? Students, am I audible to you? If you audible, kindly reply.
Audio learner, there was some technical problem.
Okay, okay, it's okay now, sir.
Okay, so some network problem was there for which. So inconvenience is regretted. So again, I'm starting from the methods and the levels of dialogue. I want to that express the meaning of that dialogue. The dialogue is a conversion between two or more people. It is an interaction between people with a different perspective and interest who are intended on the learning from one another. So it can be engaged in the numerous that ways like the conversion, debate, discussion, critique, lesson, and the likes one. So it is also presumes a certain respect for others, that mutually honesty and the ability to engage in critical thinking. So dialogue can take place between two or more people and is that primarily a face-to-face interaction of the individuals. Even in modern technology, ଆମେ ଦେଖୁଛନ୍ତି dialogue ହଉଛି ବା ଗୋଟେ ଭିଡ଼ିଓ କନଫରେନ୍ସିଂ ମାଧ୍ୟମରେ ମିଟିଂ ହଉଛି, suppose the secretary of revenue, so you will that convene a meeting, that online that that is video conferencing. So he is at particular Bhubaneswar, and all the collectors of the 30 district. So they will that converse. It is also a dialogue through dialogue. But the video conferencing, collaborating, and also express the views through various forums. A resolution that dialogue has the purpose of resolving conflict. But in Gandhian approach to conflict resolution, here the resolution dialogue has the purpose of resolving conflict through dialogue. जो problem है ताकू जो dialogue माध्यम रे केमिति समाधान करे. So suspending the judgments and assumptions is essential to establishing a that flow of that meaning and finding and shared meaning within a dialogue between the conflicting participants. So dialogue that promotes better understanding and more creative cooperation between different people and groups. The process will help to reduce misunderstandings. କାରଣ ଯେତେବେଳେ କନଭରସେସନ ହୁଏ, ଯାହାର ଯାହା ଭୁଲ ଯେତେବେଳେ କନଭରସେସନ ହୋଇଯାଏ, ସେତେବେଳେ ଆମେ ଜଣାପଡ଼ନ୍ତି ଜାଣିପାରିବା ଯେ ଦୁଇଟି ପାର୍ଟି ମଧ୍ୟରେ କାହାର ଭୁଲ ଅଛି ଠିକ ଅଛି। ତେଣୁ ଯେପର୍ଯ୍ୟନ୍ତ କନଭରସେସନ ହେଇନଥାଏ, ସେ କଥା ଏଇଟା ଗୋଟେ ମିସଅଣ୍ଡରଷ୍ଟାଣ୍ଡିଂ ବି ରହିଥାଏ ଯେ ସେ ଭୁଲ କହିଛି ବା ଯେ କେହି କାହାରିକି ପଚାରନ୍ତିନି, କିନ୍ତୁ ନିଜେ ନିଜେ ମାନେ ଗୋଟେ ମିସଅଣ୍ଡରଷ୍ଟାଣ୍ଡିଂରେ ସିଏ ମୋତେ ଭୁଲ ବୁଝିଛି ଏହା ବୋଲି ରହିଯାଏ। କିନ୍ତୁ when the dialogue will deliver in between two parties through a that mediation, so third party দ্বারা যেତେବେଳେ ତାକୁ ଇନଭାଇଟ୍ କରାଯିବ, ସେତେବେଳେ କ'ଣ ହବ ନା both the parties they will acknowledge their misunderstandings and tensions and help ensure more successful that interaction on the future. तापरे समाने जो जानिगला परे तंकर जो फ्यूचर टा होची किबोली भाबरे नेगोशिएट समाने करि पारे. So that is dialogue. So negotiation is also the method of conflict resolution. So negotiation is a method by which people settle that differences. These are the ଭିତରେ जो difference ଟିକେ ଅଛି difference ଆମେ ତାକୁ negotiation ହେଉଛି କରିବୁ. ଏବଂ ଗାନ୍ଧୀ ଯୋଉ negotiation ଏବଂ dialogue ଟାକୁ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଦ୍ୱନ୍ଦ୍ୱ କ୍ଷେତ୍ରରେ ସମାଧାନ ପାଇଁ ବ୍ୟବସ୍ଥା କରିଥିଲେ. କିନ୍ତୁ negotiation ତା ମଧ୍ୟ ଅଦର ମିନ୍ସ ପଜିଟିଭ ୱେରେ ମଧ୍ୟ ଆମେ କହିପାରିବା କେତେ କ୍ଷେତ୍ରରେ ଗୋଟେ ସୁସମ୍ପର୍କ ସ୍ଥାପନ ପାଇଁ ମଧ୍ୟ ନେଗୋସିଏସନ ମଧ୍ୟ କରାଯାଇପାରେ. So negotiation is a method by which the people settle differences. So it is a process by which compromise or agreement is reached while that avoiding arguments and disputes. যুক্তি তর্ক হচ্ছে হব নাই. So negotiation skills can be of a great benefit. Negotiation skills can have great benefit in resolving any differences that arise between you and others. ତମମାନଙ୍କ ଭିତରେ ଯା ମାନେ ସବୁ କନଫ୍ଲିକ୍ଟ ସବୁ ଅଛି ସେଟା ବହୁତ ମାନେ ନେଗୋସିଏସନ ର ବହୁତ କିଛି ଲାଭ ଅଛି. And there are 5 steps to the negotiation process. That is the preparation and the planning, definition of ground rules, clarification and justification, bargaining and problem solving, and closure and implementation. Similarly, the the 5 numbers of steps so that the conflict can be resolved in a that society which is that happen in between 2 persons or the groups and others. Like so. The effective negotiation skills are the verbal communication and effective speaking, listening and ठीक भाବରେ सुनिबा दरकार. Reducing that misunderstanding is a key part of effective negotiation. Another is that rapport building, rapport building, problem solving, and decision making, assertiveness, dealing with the difficult situation. So these are the effective communication means through which negotiation can be maintained. Another thing is that out of which the best negotiation strategy, this negotiation ପାଇଁ जो ଅଛି ତେଣୁ best negotiation जो କେମିତି ଭାବରେ ହେଇପାରିବ. So that ସେଗୁଡ଼ିକ ହେଲା that listen more than that you talk. ତମେ କହିବା ଅପେକ୍ଷା ଅଧିକ ଶୁଣିବା ଦରକାର. ତାହେଲେ ନେଗୋସିଏସନ ର ଫଳପ୍ରଦ ହୋଇପାରିବ. Use timing to your that advantage. Which is second. Number 3, always find the right way. Always find the right way to frame the negotiation. And always get when you give and always be willing to work. So it should be, if this that element or this strategy should be followed, so negotiation is a very good result, very good positive result. Next, Gandhi's that method of negotiation. So in this Gandhian approach to conflict resolution, the Gandhi's non-violent method had a telling effect on the mass during the freedom struggle. The effect was equally impressive on the British government that ruled the country. Gandhi was reading. That means this negotiation dialogue that has been used several times during British imperialism and when the Gandhi had led the nation to get liberation of the mother country. Gandhi was ready to investigate into the roots of the problem whenever it existed. Petition, negotiation, arbitrate, mediate, and engage in the dialogue when necessary. So Gandhi was giving a traces on where is the fault, where is the conflict, and that he was using the techniques or the methods that taking the situation like the petition, negotiation, arbitration, mediation, uh, which is that necessary for the circumstantial condition. So dialogue and negotiations, we the negotiations were taken up in most of the cases, like Ahmedabad labor strike, the Champaran movement, Bardoli, the Satyagraha, Gandhi Unity Pact, and the Pune Pact concluded between Gandhi and Ambedkar. So many that cases. So Gandhi insisted on that converting the opponent through satyagraha. So law and love and ahimsa instead of imposing the coercion. Without coercion, without imposing the coercion, how we can win the heart of the opponent through love and also ahimsa. So this is the Gandhian method of negotiation. Now we see that relevance of dialogue and negotiation in today, the rising violent incident are adding to the existing conflicts, thereby leaving no scope for dialogue and negotiations. হঠাৎ যদি କିଛି ହେଲା ଆଉ ନେଗୋସିଏସନର ବାଟ ନାହିଁ ସଙ୍ଗେ ସଙ୍ଗେ ଚାପ ଭାଉଲେନ୍ସ ସେ ଯଦି ବମ୍ ପକେଇଲା ଆମେ ବମ୍ ପକେଇବା ସେ ଯଦି ମାରିଲେ ଆମେ ସଙ୍ଗେ ସଙ୍ଗେ ହଉଛି ଷ୍ଟାର୍ଟ କରିଦେଉଛନ୍ତି without waiting for the dialogue or negotiation that circumstances. So the both the parties they are starting the violence attitude unless there is a massive change in the mindset and strategies of the parties. The solutions seem to be unresolved. କେବେ ରିଜଲ୍ଟ ମିଳିପାରିବ ନାହିଁ so long as both the parties have not mindset in the interest of mankind and in the interest of promoting world peace. ଯଦି ମାନସିକ ସ୍ତରରେ ପରିବର୍ତ୍ତନ ନ ଆସେ ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କର ଏବଂ କାହା ପାଇଁ ନା ମାନବ ଜାତିର ସ୍ୱାର୍ଥ ପାଇଁ ଏବଂ ଯେଉଁ ବିଶ୍ୱରେ ଶାନ୍ତିକୁ ଯେଉଁ ବିକାଶ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ଏବଂ ଶୃଙ୍ଖଳିତ ଜୀବନ ପାଇଁ ଯଦି ମାଇଣ୍ଡ ସେଟ୍ ନ ହୁଏ ତାହେଲେ ଅନେକ ଗୁଡ଼ିଏ କେସ୍ ସେଭଳି ଅନରିଜଲ୍ଭ ହୁଏ. So it is imperative that non-violent methods are taken up. So the best possible solution can be brought about through non-violent methods that impose no cost at all, for which dialogue and negotiation are relevant. However, in this way, we can say in conclusion that dialogue and negotiation help in resolving the conflict in an amicable manner and in understanding one's and others' position in a constructive manner. Both the methods help in warning one's interest. At the same time, they give us an insight into others' problem. It would also help in the forging harmonious relationship between parties or nations in order to work for a better and a peaceful order in the human society throughout the world. So this is the very that essence or synthesis of this unit. And next we will start that mediation and reconciliation. That is the unit 14. Now, Unity 12, that mediation and reconciliation is the another technique, that both two techniques, and how Gandhi uh, had adapted this particular techniques for conflict resolution. So we have to see first the understanding of the mediation, that the mediation and a so mediation and conciliation are two methods of conflict resolution in which a third party is involved. Mediation हो कि reconciliation हो, ଯଦି ଦ୍ୱନ୍ଦ୍ୱ ଲାଗିଛି ଏବଂ ତାକୁ ସମାଧାନ କରିବା ପାଇଁ ମଧ୍ୟସ୍ଥତା ଦରକାର। ତେଣୁ mediation and that conciliation refer to the dispute resolution process in which two or more parties that attempt to reach an amicable agreement with the help of that party. The mediation means the mediation and the conciliation are two methods of conflict resolution in which a third party is involved and his role varies from one method to another. Because unlike the conciliator who has an active role in the conciliation process, the mediator assists the parties throughout the mediation process to help them find a solution to their dispute by themselves. So mediation and reconciliation refers to the dispute resolution process in which two or more parties attempt to reach an amicable agreement with the help of that third party. So that is why the mediation and the reconciliation is important. So mediation, the mediator who does mediation work. So you continue till the end, so long as the dispute is not solved. So the concept of mediation and reconciliation is a tool of conflict resolution and the replication by Gandhi in his effort to resolve conflict. While both mediation and reconciliation are important for conflict resolution, they are implied at different stages of conflict. Suppose the mediation is a method of a peaceful resolution that is used to bring about a solution to an ongoing conflict. Similarly, reconciliation, on the other hand, is a process of coming to terms with the reality at the end of the conflict and of preparing oneself for a renewed coexistence with other groups. Mediation ମାନେ तुम्हारे समाधान हो गला, पूरी फर्दर किभଳି भाବରେ ସେମାନଙ୍କ ଭିତରେ जो संपर्क सुधार आसो, संपर्क किभଳି डेवलपमेंट ହେବ, so that is the duty of reconciliation. So usually the mediation as a procedure comes into that prominence during conflict when parties try to seek a way out of that ambiguity, and reconciliation is a process that normally comes into effect after a conflict has come into an end to heal that wounds and help a community to march on its life. तामने एथु बुझिबा जे मध्यस्थता जोटा मेडिएशनटा जे कन्फ्लिक्ट जो तकु दुई पार्टी मध्य रे दुई ग्रुप मध्य रे समाधान करिवा पई मध्यस्थता करा जे थर्ड पार्टी. So it is necessary for the conflict resolution as expressed by Gandhi. And we are also see that the pre-Gandhian period and also the post-Gandhian period. That post-Gandhian period जो ଆମେ ପଢୁଛନ୍ତି ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ the post-Gandhian that approach to peace and that conflict resolution, we are also observing in various situations this mediation and also reconciliation are solving different type of conflict. So mediation is a process. The mediator will continue till the last of which is conflict resolution. So after conflict resolution, how the cooperation, coexistence, a sense of that belongingness will develop among the parties. That is the process of the techniques of reconciliation. So through reconciliation, the development of relation can be taken place in between two opponents. The idea of a Shanti Sena is the another that techniques that has been used by Gandhi in his approach to peace and conflict resolution. Let's see. The Gandhi's idea of Shanti Sena is important. Here, both has a means of a peaceful resistance as well as the method of achieving reconciliation in the society when it is torn by conflict. Gandhi believed that just as there is an army to wage war, there must also be dedicated soldiers of peace and non-violence to hold that wave of the social fabric together. The concept of Shanti Sena has been variously that translated as peace bridge. ଅଧିକାଂଶ ସମୟରେ ମାନେ ଦେଖା ହେଇଛି ଯେ ଶାନ୍ତିର ଦୂତ ହିସାବରେ ତାଙ୍କୁ ସମାଧାନ କରିବା. So the Shanti Sena is treated as the peace bridge, the peace army, and the soldier of peace to denote a group of volunteers who are that practitioner of non-violence and are soldiers aiming to resolve social conflicts peacefully. So, Shanti Sena was to act as a neutral mediator. Shanti Sena was to act as a neutral mediator of peace during a conflict, as also to act as a healer in the process of reconciliation and coexistence in the aftermath of violence. So it was useful idea at every stage of the conflict resolution. What is that? Is the Shanti Sena resolution. Even while the following the abhorred principle of non-violence. Non-violence means ମାଧ୍ୟମରେ ଶାନ୍ତି ସେନା କିଭଳି ଭାବରେ ଅନେକ କ୍ଷେତ୍ରରେ ଯେ conflict resolution କରିଛି ବା peace ଆଣିପାରିଛି ଏବଂ this Shanti Sena is just like a peace bridge between two groups or the two rival groups or two rival nations like so on. So in this unit we conclude that mediation is one such means. The mediation and the reconciliation are the two techniques that such means of a peaceful resolution where intervention by a third party attempts to find a solution to a dispute. Followed again, I am telling the mediation is one such means or techniques of peaceful resolution where intervention by the third party attempts to find a solution to a dispute, while that circumscribing the adversarial behavior of the disputes. Gandhi believed in values like truth, non-violence, non-cooperation, satyagraha, and forgiveness as the mediating forces to bring about a change of heart of the opponent for effective and lasting resolution of the conflict. You see how great things he is described that that Gandhi through his that techniques, through his that particularly means, so wanted to win the heart of the opponent. For what? But for effective and lasting resolution. Gandhi was wanting the lasting resolution of the conflict, not a temporary solution or a resolution. How the society will never that see again the conflict. Similarly, amicable resolution of a conflict creates a positive atmosphere for reconciliation. ଯେତେବେଳେ କନଫ୍ଲିକ୍ଟ ସମାଧାନ ହେଇପାରିବ ସେତେବେଳେ ଏ ପରିବେଶ ପଳେଇ ଆସେ ଯେ ପୁଣି ତାଙ୍କ ଭିତରେ କିଭଳି ପୁନଃ ସମ୍ପର୍କ ପୁନଃ ପ୍ରକ୍ରିୟା ଏବଂ ପାରସ୍ପରିକ ସମ୍ପର୍କ ପୁଣି ଡେଭଲପମେଣ୍ଟ ହେଇପାରେ reconciliation and the resolve among all parties to the conflict to make a fresh beginning ପୁଣି ମୂଳରୁ ଆରମ୍ଭ ହେବ ତାଙ୍କ ଭିତରେ ଗୋଟେ ମାନେ ସମ୍ପର୍କ so it holds a better promise for peace than military victory since it is perceived as a victory of all rather than the party to the conflict. ତେଣୁ ପରବର୍ତ୍ତୀ ଅବସ୍ଥାରେ ଗୋଟେ ଦ୍ୱନ୍ଦ୍ୱର ଏକ ଅଂଶ ବିଶେଷ ନ ହୋଇ ସେମାନେ କ'ଣ କରିବେ ନା ପୁଣି ସୌହାର୍ଦ୍ଦ୍ୟର ସହିତ ପରିସ୍ଥିତିକୁ କିଭଳି ଭାବରେ ସମାଧାନ କରିବେ. So this was the mediation and reconciliation, how Gandhi was so expert that by using this technique, so he had achieved that the conflict resolution in various cases. And after Gandhi, we are also observing that the importance and the relevance of that mediation and reconciliation in our society. So anyway, next we'll see that unit 13, that Noakhali. Noakhali and why it is important. ବେଳେ ବେଳେ ପିଲାମାନେ ମଧ୍ୟ ଆକୁ ନୂଆ ଖାଇ ବୋଲି ପଢି ଦେଇଥାନ୍ତି ଏବଂ କହିଥାନ୍ତି ନୂଆ ଖାଇ ନୁହେଁ ନୂଆ ଖାଇ ଏବଂ why ନୂଆ ଖାଲି is important. ତେଣୁ ବ୍ରିଟିଶ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆ ସମୟରେ ନୂଆଖଲି এটা ବେଙ୍ଗଲରେ ଥିଲା ଏବଂ now it is coming under the Bangladesh and that a tragedy communal riot was happened in that Noakhali in which that minority Hindu which has been exploited by the Muslim League and just before the independence, and it was too crucial. The exploitation of the Muslim League was too precarious, for which various Hindus they have converted forcibly, and also some that Hindu lady they have been forced to marry the Muslims. So in that moment, there are just so many that incident, but that was the pre-independent movement. So throughout the nation, so many disturbance and the conflict was there, but the Gandhi preferred to move Noakhali to remain there to 1946, that 16 August till the 1947. So here is the thing is that why this Nuakhali is important. I want to tell you in nutshell. The riot in that Bengals, Nuakhali district that occurred exactly this 70 years ago between October to November 1946, just before independence. The then Bengal's interim chief minister and a member of a Muslim League was accused of allowing riots against the regions of Hindu minority to support his party's demand for participation. ତେଣୁ ହିନ୍ଦୁ ମାଇନରିଟି ଯେଉଁମାନେ ଥିଲେ ତାଙ୍କ ବିରୁଦ୍ଧରେ ସ୍ୱର ଉତ୍ତୋଳନ କଲେ କିଏ ମୁସଲିମ ଲିଗ ଏବଂ ଏଇ ସେତେବେଳେ ଯେ ଚିଫ ମିନିଷ୍ଟର ଥିଲେ ଏବଂ the members of the Muslim League. So they gave chances to the particularly the parties, the groups, those who have adopted the violence means. ସେଠି ମାଇନରିଟି ହିନ୍ଦୁ ଥିଲେ ଏବଂ ମାଇନରିଟି ହିନ୍ଦୁକୁ ଫୋର୍ସ କଲେ ଯେ ତମେ ଯେ କିଭଳି ଯୋଉ ମହମ୍ମଦ ଅଲି ଜିନ୍ନାଙ୍କ ନେତୃତ୍ୱରେ ଯୋଉ separate Pakistan ପାଇଁ ଯୋଉ ଡିମାଣ୍ଡ ଅଛି ସେ ଡିମାଣ୍ଡକୁ the Hindu that the community managed. It's because in the Bengal under British imperialism the Hindus were minority in number. Then what happened? It behoves us to remember and pay attention to that what was at stake and what was compromised on Noakhali during that month of communal occurrence, communal carnage. One way to that grapple with the event is following Gandhi's famous sojourn in Noakhali during the years, when his idea and practice of non-violence had its ultimate test. Gandhi that knew that the large-scale violence in Noakhali was meant to help the Muslim League case for partition. The communal riots presented a serious challenge not only to the idea of a unified Indian nation, but also to Gandhi's lifelong effort to establish communal harmony. So here, why the Noakhali is important, that what we have already taught from MGP-7 and MGP-8 and so many that units. So Gandhian techniques, Gandhian approach to the conflict resolution, Gandhi's method of truth and non-violence, everything has been succeeded in India in various cases. But I think here Gandhi's sincere effort has been held because this is the serious lapses. ତେଣୁ ଭାଉଲେନ୍ସ ଯୋଉ ଯେତେବେଳେ ସୃଷ୍ଟି ହେଲା ଯେ ମୁସଲିମ କି ଯୋଉ କେସ୍ ସେଠି ନିଶ୍ଚିତ ଭାବରେ ଯେ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆ ପାକିସ୍ତାନ ଅଲଗା ହେବ ବୋଲି ଯେ ଗାନ୍ଧୀ ପାଇଥିଲେ ଯୋଉ ସୂଚନା ପାଇଥିଲେ. But in spite of all these, so why Gandhi went to Noakhali? Only to save the minority Hindus, and how the communal harmony will that come out instead of real. So that is why he had gone there. So Noakhali is an important place and had its relevance for discussion in the Gandhian approach to peace and conflict resolution. That Gandhi known that the large scale of violence in the Noakhali was meant to help the Muslim League's case for a partition, the communal riots present a serious challenges not only to the idea of united India nation, but also a, that uh, Gandhiji's sincere efforts to establish communal harmony. It was known as Direct Action Day. এটা ମଧ୍ୟ मोहम्मद अली ଜେନା ଏବଂ ମୁସଲିମ ଲିଗ ମଧ୍ୟ ଏକ୍ସପ୍ରେସ କରିଥିଲେ କ'ଣ that was known as that Noakhali incident was Noakhali riot was known as the direct action day, that is the 16th August 1946, and it is also known as the Calcutta killings, and it was a day of that widespread communal rioting between Muslim and Hindu in the city of Calcutta in the Bengal province of British India. The day also marked the sort of what is known as the week of the long knives. That is the week that ଗୋଟେ ସପ୍ତାହ ଧରି that known as the week of the long knives. କଟାକଟି ମାନେ ଚାଲିଥିଲା ଯେ କିଭଳି ଭାବରେ ଯେଉଁ ଲୋକମାନେ ସେଠି assassinated ହେଇଛନ୍ତି, kidnapping ମଧ୍ୟ ହେଇଛନ୍ତି, raped, everything. So Gandhi in Noakhali from 1946 to 1947, the rioting not only left that a large number of Hindus dead while others fled, it also sought to that obliterate symbols and forms of religious and cultural lives of the minority nation. A large number of them were forcibly converted and married by Muslims, and which was called as a massacre. The Noakhali is known as a massacre during the freedom movement, and though Gandhi has paid its attention but didn't control, but the violence started, and the partition of Bengal demand was clarified in this incident. So, so we can say in this that unit, in concluding point, that a discourse on the violence without taking cognizance of the ideological apparatus is to naively ignore the entire process that went into making that particularly violence. Communalism developed its ideological apparatus, legitimizes sanctions and creates occasion for violence. जो कम्युनाल रियोट है पूरा प्लान ले सेठी हेतला जोटे कथा हमें माने जानि पारि नथिले गांधी. And it is here that one needs to see that the reconciliation efforts should not merely attempt to stop violence, but try and critique the ideology that produces such violence. किंतु एठी जो रिकन्सिलिएशन मेडिएशन या पई सुजोग नथिला, जोथि पई इंडिया एवं पाकिस्तान जे अलगा हवा पई पाट खुली दे. That Noakhali riot was qualitatively different from the earlier communal riots, including the Calcutta killings, and which immediately protected. It may be that the Gandhi could sense that the differences lay in the transformation of communal discourse as a politics based on religion to one in which the violence was sanctified by religion. It was evident from the pattern of violence at Noakhali that that rupture of an essentially peasant society had occurred, and that communal ideology would entrench itself in that social milieu and could that legitimize itself as a source of a valid and just political action. It was not difficult for the Gandhi, being an that astute reader of the Vijayant cycle, as he was, to understand the impact of such a rupture. Berkeley, therefore, became important not only because it demonstrated an intensity of violence, but also the power of an ideology that is communalism. So now we will see the unit that 14. Hmm. And unit 14 that northeast Kashmir, it is also certain situation and how uh, northeast Kashmir. That Gandhi himself was one of the firm that opinion that whatever he wrote was intended to provide practical that solutions to practical problems. So in this unit, we can say that Gandhian approach to peace and conflict resolution, though is widely considered as a that normative approach, a scientific approach, and in criticized at times for being too normative, it followed in any that real life situation. However, it is to be kept in mind that his approach was by no means a mere problem solving exercise. But a problem solving by him, no more a problem solving exercise. It was over and above an exercise in solving problems in accordance with certain moral principles. Immediate by କିଛି କିଛି ନଥିଲା. So Gandhi would not mind continuing to suffer the conflicts when trying to solve them by quoting and violating his basic moral principles. Gandhi's approach to say, in simple terms, was essentially a moral approach to peace and conflict resolution. So what has happened in the Kashmir and the north uh, east that areas? So we have to give an eye view regarding this matter and the case of Kashmir and efforts for peace, the case of Northeast in India and efforts for peace, and the Naga case and insurgency in Assam. So here, the case of Kashmir was something different, and how Gandhi has tried a sincere effort to bring peace there. Dear learner, during the that British India, hmm, that Jammu Kashmir was a princely state, and the British did not establish any direct rule over the state because the Durga Rajput monarchs used to rule this that multi-ethnic region. Multi-ethnic ବିଭିନ୍ନ ଗ୍ରୁପର ସେଠି ମାନେ ଜାତି ଧର୍ମ ବଂଶ ବିଭିନ୍ନ ପ୍ରକାରର ଲୋକ ସେଠି ଥିଲେ ବିଭିନ୍ନ କମ୍ୟୁନିଟି ଥିଲେ on behalf of the British Raj. So while the rulers were Hindus, a vast majority of the population in Kashmir were Muslim. That was the situation. So the Kashmiriate or a separate Kashmir identity that developed over the centuries was essentially that multi-ethnic and free from many of the orthodoxies. এটা କେବଳ ଅର୍ଥୋଡକ୍ସ ମୁସଲିମ ମାନଙ୍କ ମଧ୍ୟରେ ଗୋଟେ ଆସିଲା ଚିନ୍ତାଧାରା ଯେ ଆମେ ଗୋଟେ ସେପାରେଟ କାଶ୍ମୀର ଆମେ କରିବା। The Dogra rule was highly the Dogra rule was highly authoritarian, and the discontent against the rulers was that simmering, particularly in the Muslim-dominated valley during the late colonial times. That means the discontentment and the disillusion and also the dissatisfaction of the Muslim-dominated that population. So the Muslim-dominated populi, so they that started a revolt against the then monarchs. The discontent turned into a popular movement for national identity against the alien that Dogra rule in 1946. 46. National Conference, the party that led the movement under that Sheikh Abdullah raised this slogan. Again, I am telling Durga rule in 1946. The National Conference, the party that led the movement under the Sheikh Abdullah raised the slogan, attaining the right to self-determination. Ame amaro Kashmir ro porichoy amaro like this. The ତେଣୁ ସେ କ'ଣ କହିଲେ ନା quit Kashmir movement was in favor of and for attaining the right to self-determination. ତେଣୁ କାଶ୍ମୀରରୁ ଅନ୍ୟମାନେ ସବୁ ପଳେଇ ଯାଅ, ସୋ ଏହା ହେଉଛି ଆମର କାଶ୍ମୀର। ଆମେ ଯେମିତି କହୁଛୁ କ୍ୱିଟ୍ ଇଣ୍ଡିଆ, ହେ ବ୍ରିଟିଶ ସରକାର ତମେ ଏଠୁ ଛାଡ଼ି ପଳେଇ ଯାଅ। So the Durga rulers, aided by the British government, used all possible forces to suppress the movement and arrest the Sheikh Abdullah. Then what happened? At the time of a transfer of power in August 1947, the Dogra ruler Maharaj Hari Singh opted for maintaining the independent entity of Jammu and Kashmir. ठीक है, समय जब भारत की स्वाधीनता की दावत है, ये राजा हरि सिंह दोरगा रिवर ठाल ताकू स्वतंत्र दायित्व मैं चाहिले मु independent ହେଇକି ରହିବି, ତାମାନେ ଭାରତ ସହିତ ମିଶିବ ନାହିଁ। So without joining either India or Pakistan, so the Raja Hari Singh that opted to maintain his kingdom in an independent status. In September, the revolt of the Muslim population in that Poonch posed a serious threat to that Dogra rule. On 24th October 1947, a large number of that tribesmen from northwest frontier province of Pakistan that emboldened by all accounts and intruded into the valley. The rebels of Poonch soon joined the intrudes. The brutal raid of that tribesmen cost thousands of human lives, sparing neither Muslims nor Sikhs nor Hindus. कहानी की मध्य से छाड़ी दी। So Maharaj Hari Singh that desperately needed India's help. हतोबस्त है कि कौन करे ना I want the India's help to thwart the invaders, and ultimately decided to that accede to India for saving his kingdom. तो भारत रो सहायता ने जो समय की सरदार वल्लभ भाई was that external minister, and also he was the home minister. The instrument of that accession was finally signed between the Indian Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru and his Kashmir counterpart, that Meher Chand Mahajan on the 26th October 1947. So, however, Maharaja Hari Singh should conceded authority to the India Union only in matters related to defense. मतलब प्रतिरक्षा दृष्टिकोण मतलब होची काय. So external affairs and communication. Defense, external affairs and the communication ପାଇଁ ମୋତେ ସୁଯୋଗ. So on 2nd November 1947, Nehru declared in a radio broadcast, as soon as law and order had been restored in Kashmir and its soil cleared of the invaders, the question of the state's accession should be settled by reference to the people. This was and continues to be the constructed as a his pledge for plebiscite. On the 1st January 1948, Nehru referred the issue the Security Council of the UNO, United Nations. On the basis of Nehru's pledge, the Security Council decided that the future of Kashmir should be settled by reference to the people of Kashmir. In 1952, this particular situation just gave the seeds of a dispute, and that dispute was continued since long. And in the September 5, 2019, when that Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir was just changed from state to the union territories. In 1952, India refused to hold any plebiscite in that Kashmir on the ground that India would never have the conditions which were necessary for plebiscite. Moreover, it was argued that they consecutively held elections in Kashmir had more than ratified its incorporation into the Indian Republic. As a result, the plebiscite in Delhi never took place. So, tapare gote kon heichi na quick review Kashmir political history since independence points to its essentially unstable nature. And Sheikh Abdullah, as a Prime Minister of Jammu and Kashmir, took certain steps meant primarily for protecting the Kashmir region from time-old oppression of predominantly Hindu landlords. So it was the situation. And how the situation was still continuing, and the governing institute never took their roots in the state so much that India today remarked that the state about this time representative that the virtual adoption of governance. The new phase of agitation continued leaderless for a while, and finally, a new leadership from the younger generation took charge of the situation in 1987. That 5 youth in jail with a view to liberate Kashmir from the Indian rule formed an organization called Jammu and Kashmir Liberation Front (JKLF). So by that time, new leaders took over the state was under the grip of violence, and there were many organizations that openly advocated the importance of violence in the movement. So here, these Kashmir issues, how it is related to the Gandhian approach to conflict resolution, I just want to focus in this matter. The Kashmir case indicates that the Gandhi is a forgotten man now. Yeah, but he has a clear message for us in spite of the fact that principles of conflict resolution. The more they take a toll, the more we recognize their one counter violence. So that it only contributes to the that spiraling of violence, and the next solution is to so the number two, that Gandhi's firm belief that human beings are sovereign insofar as they listen to their inner voice is in jeopardy. Gandhi observed in 1947, common sense detects that the will of the Kashmiris should decide the future of Kashmir. ये कथा से ଭଲ ଭାବରେ ଜାଣିଥିଲେ ଯେ ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କ ଯୋଉ ମନ ଭିତରେ ଯୋଉ କଥା ଅଛି, but unfortunately we seem to have reached a stage when people are caught in violence, rendered helpless, unable to respond to the call of their inner voice. So it is essential that the condition for meaningful dialogue with the people that will help reduce their helplessness should be created. But there is no way to underestimate the courage of the people. We have stories of that brilliant people, particularly women, who have stood against the use of that macabre violence, voice against the militarization of the society, and negotiated the moral divide. Free peace can return to the valley only by but ensuring the rights and not by curtailing and abrogating them. The militant organization that issue that fatwas and dictates, particularly relating to the women dress code, etc., and the extraordinary legislations that take away the constitutionally recognized rights cannot provide an enduring solution. The basis of these rights is enshrined in the Article 370, is special privileges of the Constitution of India that recognizes the special status of the state and provides for widespread legislative autonomy. And development is the need of the hour in this trouble-torn state. But now the situation has been transformed. The special status under Article 378 separate constitutional status that has been already been amended. So since September 5, 2019, the government of India declared that the Jammu Kashmir is union territory. It is coming under the control of the central government. And just after the incident, the serious incident and terrorism activities, and before that, since 1900, particularly 2013 till 2019, there is a series of discontentment and so the disturbances. So taking into consideration all these things, that the government of India took the bold step to delete the state autonomy, rather the Jammu and Kashmir now it is converted into union territories, and Ladakh also. And the second thing, the Northeast that experience uh, so the in the Northeast case, we'll see the Naga case, the role of peace mission, the insurgency in Assam. It is also some that new state. That means the Naga group, the Nagas, that consisting of a number of that subgroups living in a different parts of the region as well as the Myanmar have been the first to challenge the Indian state and declare their that independence. The British policy towards the hill tribes in general and the Nagas in particular was inspired by the imperative of exercising the minimum interference in the pattern of life of the Naga tribes and keeping the outsiders from entering the tribal areas. So, on the whole, we can say that Nagas, they that tried some insurgency through Naga National Council is a that group that they wanted to secession from the Indian Union. And when the advisory committee on aboriginal tribes of the Constituent Assembly visited the Naga Hill in May 1947, the particularly the Nagas retained in the right of deciding their future at the end of this 10 years period. So, however, in this case, in this that the Naga people, the Naga that National Council, Naga Liberation Front, they started different type of that terrorism attitude. So that how this that particular movement was curbed by the Indian Union through different tools and by military regime, but the um, the peace mission held in resolving the conflict. In fact, as we see, the conflict turned worse as the peace mission collapsed. Even that Narayan knew this, that Jayaprakash Narayan. But the basic issue here was the perceived the loss of confidence and the trust. And Narayan seemed to realize that it was immoral on his part to remain in the mission when he had lost confidence and trust from those for whom the mission was set up. For a devout Gandhian, nothing is more serious than the loss of trust and the credibility. He made a clear moral choice for him. It was better to continue with the conflict than impose a solution on the ruling parties. ତେଣୁ ସେଠି ଯେ ଏ ଯୋଉ ନାଗା କେସରେ କ'ଣ ହେଲା ନା କନଫ୍ଲିକ୍ଟ ରିଜଲ୍ୟୁସନଟା ହେଇପାରିଲା ଏବଂ ସେଥିରେ at last that Nagaland was also declared as a separate state. Another insurgency in Assam, that Ulfa, it is by Ulfa. One of the refers to the insurgency in Assam, one cannot but refer to one of the largest insurgent organizations that have been leading it. Although the United Liberation Front of Assam, Ulfa, was born on 7th April 1979, it was not until 1983 that Ulfa suppressed in a public arena and the people could become aware of its political presence in Assam. It started as a more militant stream of the anti-foreigners movement mentioned above and gradually broke away from the moderate forces that were associated with it. But Ulfa sought into prominence by organizing bank heists and undertaking the rural development works and meting out that the summary justice in the remote areas where state presence is thin and even by carrying out the attributive that killings. The organization was that declared illegal only as late as November 27, 1990, the year 1909 that mark as the that watershed as the army moved in and the first ever army operation were launched with the objective of liquidating Ulfa. So while Operation Bajrang ended up in the anticlimax, another operation condemned the operation that RENU began in September 91 with the objective of pushing out the terrorists and isolating them from the people of Assam, although one faction of Ulfa was engaged in talks with the government of India and reportedly came close to the arriving at a negotiated settlement that another faction surrendered to it and became subsequently known as that surrender that Ulfa or surrender Ulfa. Unlike Operation Bajrang, the objective of the second operation was quite different. Operation that RENU second, which is operational now, aims at bringing the boys to the negotiating table. A military operation in effect is launched for holding talk with the armed militants. Although offers of the talks have been extended, so anyway, so this Assam insurgency that uh, problem, so that could also the suppress by the government and also it was also solved by the Gandhian that philosophy. That the formalistic stand on both parts in that reflective of the persisting mutual distrust and caught both of them in a that stalemate. As a result, what happened? That disengaged from the talks under the first round of army operation was launched against it, and recently some of the top cadre of the Ulfa was arrested. The organization now stand concerned with want of strategy and support. So age and date, the region is witnessing a scale of peace and its duration depends on the further development. So the cases, this particular violent group so could submerge and the conflict uh, of this conflicting group that can be that could negotiate it through the another that a group known as the Operation Bajrang. So finally, we can say that Gandhi, after all, would have that preferred to suffer the problems than to resolve them in ways that violate the normative principle that he held so dearly throughout his life. So, absence of conflicts was seen is not a failure, but as Gandhi would have us believe is a step towards the resolution of conflicts. It is for likely to melt the heart of the enemy Even that, the crucial one step was enough for him. So, another case in the Sri Lanka, the unit that 15, that Sri Lankan case, that how, and in the Sri Lankan case, the is associated with the Gandhian techniques as that applicable to conflict situation. And in Sri Lanka, there was a tussle in between the Sri Lankan government and also LTT. That was the main problem, that anti-Sri Lanka group, and known as that LTT, they stood to liberate that their ethnicity, that identity. ତାଙ୍କ ଏଥେନ୍ସିଟି ଆଇଡେଣ୍ଟିଟିକୁ ନେଇକି କିଭଳି ଭାବରେ ସେ ଇଏ କରିବେ, ସମାଧାନ କରିବେ, ସେ ହେଉଛି ଚାହିଁଥିଲେ। But how it could not that substantiate Cebu, the बेटीटा देलु, बेटीटा लो है Yes, unit. Okay, in the Gandhian technique is applicable to that conflict situation in Sri Lanka. In Sri Lanka, in judging Gandhian technique is applicable to conflict situation in Sri Lanka, that underpinned by the ethics that strive between the majority. So now it is okay, dear learner. Now it is okay. Are you listening me? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Dear learner, are you listening me? Okay.
Yes, sir.
ଶୁଭା ଯାଉଛି ତ?
Okay, sir.
ହଁ sir.
ହଁ sir, ହଁ ଶୁଭା ଯାଉଛି sir.
ଦେଖା ବି ଯାଉଛି ତ?
ହଁ sir, ଦେଖା ଯାଉଛି.
ଆଚ୍ଛା, okay. So in the Sri Lankan case, let us see the Gandhian techniques is applicable to conflict resolution, how and what is the real problem, and try to mute your audio, please. Try to mute your audio. It is creating problem. Okay.
सर MGPE-008 आपण ओपन करछंदी फाइल PDF
MGPE-008
आपण ओपन करछंदी आज्ञा।
ओहो, अच्छा, ओ सॉरी आई एम Okay. There is some technical problem. MGP-8 and download to MGP-8. Okay, just I am just going through the MGP-8. Just you heard what I am telling. Hmm. Try to mute your that audio. Hmm.
Okay, sir.
That is not necessary, and just I will that narrate some new that events relating to the Gandhian techniques. Gandhian techniques as applicable to conflict resolution. That is the Sri Lankan case. And the Sri Lankan case was something different. It was the tussle between the Sri Lankan government and also the LTT. That is LTT. That is 7. LTT. The systematic exclusion of the Tamil speaking minorities that practiced by the Sri Lankan government over a decade following a dual-faced approach of preaching the peaceful settlement of dispute between the two communities. So while allowing the military to operate in that a ham-fisted fashion to crack down on the Tamil minorities, that to the extra regional support meted out by the Sri Lankan government through the involvement of United States, Pakistan, and India to address the ethnic problem. So throughout the Indian government has pursued a too prolonged strategy of persuasion and coercion against the Sri Lankan government and the Sri Lankan Tamils on different occasions. The objective behind such a strategy was to advance a viable political settlement to the ethnic issue. To ethnic issues. The objective behind such strategy was to advance a viable political settlement to the ethnic issues through negotiation on one hand, and on the other, deterring that Sri Lankan government search for extra regional help from outside. In support of this latter objective, there were that allegation that India even trained that armed and extended that refugee to the militant Tamil groups. So number 3, so another thing is there was overriding influence of Tamil tigers under the leadership of that Velupai, that Prabhakaran. Under him, the group had that graduated from a moderate militant group. So I am telling that what was the problem in Sri Lanka due to this 3 incidents. One, the systematic exclusion of the Tamil-speaking minorities practiced by the Sri Lankan government. Number 2, the extra regional support meted out by the Sri Lankan government through the involvement of the United States, that Pakistan and India to address the ethnic problem. And number 3, there was overriding influence of the Tamil tigers under the leadership of that Velupai, that Prabhakaran. So under him, the group had graduated from the moderate militant group to a full-blown terrorist organization. And these are the particularly the problem. And what was that Gandhian approach related to this incident? Just I want to that So throughout the particularly the I want to say the number three that incident that Prabhakaran set up a training camp and in a jungle near that Bhenujia and which raised funds from that illicit sources, bank robbery, money laundering, and that transshipment of arms and ammunition, and deadly suicide missions. For the that deployment human bombs. So his expertise lay in his systematic that dissemination of prominent political figures. So these are the some incidents for how Sri Lankan government and these that groups there are problems. There was the conflict. So throughout the 1970s, non-violent methods were used to protest against the discriminating politics of the state. Okay, Sri Lanka. तने आरंभ होइतला जो आरंभ दिन ठारू 1981 रु पुणी ना 1970 रु ने 1991 पर्यंत जेतबेले दैट राजीव गांधी होची थिले प्राइम मिनिस्टर so that the LTT also denoted a truck bomb. Just I want to express something more regarding an incident that particularly for this case when Sri Lankan government requested to the Indian government and the then Prime Minister of that Rajiv Gandhi, so he that helped and gave the consent to help the Sri Lanka government and he sent IPK force. IPK force known as term that designated as the Santi Sena. Indian peacekeeping force were sent by the then Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi on the request of Sri Lankan president Ran Singh Premdasa. So and the Indian peacekeeping force, they reached there and they subsided the problems. But it was a curse for the India. The LTT also that detonated the truck bombs directed to the paralyze the Sri Lanka's economy, while it that decimated Lanka's infrastructure by targeting the commuter trains, buses, oil tanks, and power station. Everything that has been damaged. এবং এই যে সিচুয়েশন সেটি আরম্ভ কলে তাଙ୍କର जो ডিভাইডেড ପାଇଁ এবং आईपीकेएफ फोर्स जो दिया जाइଥିଲା इंडिया तरफରୁ ଏବଂ ସେମାନେ ସେଇ जो रिवेंज रे ଯେତେବେଳେ प्राइम मिनिस्टर राजीव गांधी निर्वाचन प्रचार रे जाइଥିଲେ तमिलनाडु श्री पेरुम्बुतुर रे भाषण देला समय that LTT supported so took a revenge against the that Rajiv Gandhi. So the same thing कहली एटा उके आम पई रिसर्च थिला. So however, so far as the Gandhian perspective is concerned, I would like to say that in the 1970s, non-violent methods were used to protest against the discriminating politics of the state. The Sarvodaya movement started in 1958. It staged large peace mediation and promoted youth exchanges between Tamil and Sinhalese. Among some NGOs also worked for peace with the activities both the national and local levels. They include the National Peace Council and research institutions like the International Center of Ethnic Studies women's organization working for peace movement on interracial justice and that equality. But all these peace efforts finally succumbed to that unbearable majoritarian radicalism unless by the Sinhalese. Number two, it lacked the strength and charisma to run a that durable mass movement. And number three, the Tamil Tiger militancy that stole the region's attention away from peace. At the end of the day, it was widely accepted that we have tried peace, but it did not work. And now military means are dominating. ତେଣୁ ଏଠି କହିବା କଥା ଯେ ଗାନ୍ଧିଆନ approach to conflict resolution through its technique so have been that tried in Sri Lanka to solve the Sri Lankan problem, but due to the terrorist activities of Sinhalese majoritarian radicalism, so it could not be materialized. And India's involvement in the Sri Lankan conflict, a case as far as India is concerned, there are distinctly two phases of India's policy vis-a-vis the ethnic conflict of Sri Lanka. The first phase, 1983 to 90, and that second phase, that is since 1990 until date. So since on that 1984, India followed a too prolonged strategy of persuasion and coercion both against the Sri Lanka government and the Tamil militant and the different occasions. The objective against Sri Lanka, the objective behind such a strategy was to evolve that viable structure of a political settlement through negotiations without that augmenting one party against another. So, what happened thereafter? On the 29th July 1987, the then Indian Prime Minister Rajiv Gandhi and President Jayawardhan signed in that agreement, whereby they agreed that a Tamil majority, that northern and eastern provinces, would be merged to ensure that distinct Tamil national without disturbing the integrity of the Sri Lanka. Out agreement that to hold election to provincial councils of north and east before 31st December 1987. And third, out agreement to invite an Indian peacekeeping that contingent to guarantee and enforce that cessation of the hostilities in that Japan. And fourthly, India shall ensure that its territory is not used for activities prejudicial to the unity and integrity of Sri Lanka. No, this is the Prime Minister Sangare a prakara chukti hela pore. Thank you na the Sri Lankan government was in trouble. So this was the agreement between Sri Lanka and India. So then only this goodwill accord was short-lived. ये जो माने परिस्थिति थिला एवं goodwill चलता इंडिया एवं श्रीलंका संपर्क ताहा बेसी दिन गला नहीं. What happened? Now the new president, that Premadasa, was opposed to the Indo-Sri Lanka agreement from the beginning, and he insisted on the replacement of the accord. ये जो agreement हेतला ताकू replace करिया पे से चाहिए. So that what happened thereafter, that on the replacement of the accord by friendship treaty and called for the withdrawal of the Indian peacekeeping force from the Sri Lanka by 29th July 1989. That means when the that president changed, new president that Premdasa, so he didn't accept the agreement and he immediately that informed to the Indian government to withdraw the IPKF force from my side. So it refrained from taking part even in the SARC meeting held at the Islamabad in July 1989. On 19 September 1989, the IPPK unilaterally that suspended its military operation. ତେଣୁ ଯୋଉଥିପାଇଁ ସାର୍କ ସମ୍ମିଳନୀରେ ମଧ୍ୟ ଯୋଗଦାନ ନେଉଛି ଶ୍ରୀଲଙ୍କା. So after the IPK's withdrawal, there were a drastic change in India-Sri Lanka policy. Since then, successive government in New Delhi expressed their that anguish by deciding against any form of direct intervention in the ethnic conflict. So Sri Lanka, since the mid-1990s, sought India as a direct politico-military rule, but the brutal assassination. So it is a remarkable that it is a date, an event that in the mid-1990s sought India as a direct politico-military rule, but the brutal assassination of Rajiv Gandhi on 21st May 1991 turned the tables against any direct involvement in the conflict. India strongly preferred a homegrown solution to the conflict reached through a serious negotiation process involving all the ethnic stakeholders. It was strictly opposed to assume the role of a mediator. It was strictly opposed to assume the role of a mediator in chalking out a peace process, while it increasingly approved greater international involvement in peacekeeping. India now openly approved in the involvement of Norway, Japan, European Union for engaging the LTT into negotiation. On the LTT, the demand for a free elam, India has taken a stand that would enable both the adversaries. The Sri Lankan government and the LTT adopt a reasonable stand on the issue of interim administration for the Northeast and devoted up to 2006. So that peace strategy ପାଇଁ ତାପରେ କଣ development ହେଇଥିଲା ନା ଶ୍ରୀଲଙ୍କାରେ ନା particularly the Tamil rights and equality would not be obtained through the moderate politics and Gandhian methods based on the levels of use of violence and duration of fighting. So LTT war for Tamil Elam highlighted all the traits of a total war that encompasses. These are the situation of Sri Lanka and how India, through Gandhian approach to conflict resolution, have tried its effort to solve the problem in Sri Lanka, but it could not materialize. But in the later stage, the Sri Lanka invited India to develop that cooperation and the coexistence, and that is continued at present. However, we can say in the Sri Lankan case, particularly the violence is a fact of life. All should admit it, but it cannot be our ideal or destiny. Violence has been at the center of human. But there is a unmistakable evidence of the march of mankind for that savagery to civilization, from that ferocity to gentleness, from violence to non-violence. Human society as a whole has been steadily progressing towards the non-violence. But our remote ancestors were that cannibals, then they took to live on that phase. Next came the stage of agriculture and industry. Thus, from being a that nomad to settle down to civilized stable life. So all these were the sign of a human endeavor at a progressive non-violence and diminishing the violence. ତେଣୁ ଏହା ମାନେ ସୋଲେଲି ଲୋକମାନଙ୍କ ପାଖରୁ ଚେଷ୍ଟା କରାଯାଇଛି ଯେ କେମିତି ଏହାକୁ ଯେ ଭାଉଲେନ୍ସ ପରିବର୍ତ୍ତେ ଆମେ ନନ୍ ଭାଉଲେନ୍ସ ମାଧ୍ୟମରେ କେମିତି ଚେଷ୍ଟା କରିବା ସମାଧାନ ପାଇଁ। ସୋ ନନ୍ ଭାଉଲେନ୍ସ ଇଜ ନଟ୍ ଏନ୍ ଇଣ୍ଡିଭିଜୁଆଲ ବଟ୍ ଏ ସୋସିଆଲ ଭର୍ଚ୍ୟୁ। It can be practiced by all the people, not merely individually, but collectively as a whole. India had the privilege to proudly own people who that preached and practiced non-violence, not as an abstract principle, but as a practical solution to problem of daily life. Gandhi was such a gift to mankind. Gandhi was such a gift to mankind, not only India, but throughout the world. His relevance will resonate again. His relevance will resonate again and again, whether in war or peace, since every war is means lasting that ends on a durable peace, and in every peace lays the foundation of a better civilization. Again, I'm telling the lasting the penchant for a durable peace, and in every peace lays the foundation of a better civilization, bond with love, not through coercion or war, but through love. In his autobiography, Gandhi had said that I have nothing new to teach the Indians, to teach the people of world. Truth and non-violence are as old as hills. ପାହାଡ଼ ପର୍ବତ ଯେଭଳି ମୁକସାକ୍ଷୀ ହେଇକି ରହିଛି ଠିକ୍ ସେଇଭଳି ଯେ ଟ୍ରୁଥ୍ ଆଣ୍ଡ ନନ୍ ଭାଉଲେନ୍ସ ସେଇଭଳି ଭାରତରେ ଥିଲା ଏବଂ ରହିଛି ଏବଂ ମୁଁ କେବଳ ଖାଲି ତାଙ୍କୁ ସଚେତନ କରିଛି। And apart from this, that the last but not the least, that Tibet, Myanmar and Bhutan ମଧ୍ୟ କିଭଳି ଭାବରେ same case, the Gandhian approach to peace and conflict resolution has been adopted to solve their problems. Just we will draw a eye view that in the shortest and within the limited time we have to finish the unity 16 because time is too late. Tibet, Myanmar and Bhutan are India's immediate neighbor. They all are included in the SAARC families. You know, dear learner, they are all are the SAARC members. Bhutan and Tibet are landlocked. On the other hand, Myanmar is situated along the Bay of Bengal. Bhutan and Myanmar are sovereign independent countries, but Tibet is occupied by People's Republic of China since 1950. All the three are Buddhist influenced by Indian culture, Buddhist and influenced by Indian culture and civilization. So Bhutan, Tibet and Myanmar retain their faith in Buddhism, whereas India is secular. Although Buddhism was born in India, It is preserved in letter and spirit in the Himalayan nations, where Buddhism is an important pillar of their nationalism and identity. The Chinese communist, the Chinese communist system or India's democratic system have not been able to transform the social values and religious faith of the people in Bhutan, Tibet, and Myanmar. So the so far as the Gandhian approach to peace and conflict resolution, the Bhutan case, the Tibet case, and ଆମର ଯୋଉ ତିବ୍ବତୀୟ ଗୁରୁ ଦଲାଇ ଲାମା ତାଙ୍କ କେସ୍ ଏଥିରେ ମଧ୍ୟ ଅଛି କିଭଳି ଭାବରେ ତାଙ୍କୁ ଭାରତ ଯୋଉ ସୁଯୋଗ ଦେଇଥିଲା ଏବଂ ଭାରତ ଯେତେବେଳେ ଦଲାଇ ଲାମାଙ୍କୁ ଏଠି ଦେଲେ ଚାନ୍ସ ଦେଲେ ରହିବା ପାଇଁ ଯୋଉଥିପାଇଁ 1962 ମସିହାରେ ଯୋଉ ୱାର ମଧ୍ୟ ସେଥିପାଇଁ ହେଇଥିଲା। ତେଣୁ ଯୋଉ ମିଆଁମାର ଯୋଉ କେସ୍ ମଧ୍ୟ ସେଭଳି ଏବଂ India is a center of SARC at present, always wants to give that that help to this trinity. But the problem of nation building, the Bhutan, Tibet, and Myanmar are facing the problem of nation building, but the nature of their problems differ one and another. The Tibet is occupied by China. Tibet China occupied and it does not recognize the existence of Tibet refugees in contrast to their policies versus that overseas Chinese. Similarly, the ethnic that Huns who have migrated to Tibet in recent years find difficulties in that integrating with the Tibetans. On the other hand, Bhutan has thousands of settlers from Nepal. Bhutan has thousands settlers from Nepal, and their integration with that groupes is difficult. So, on the other hand, that Myanmar is witnessing the ethnic conflict ever since its independence. The integration of ethnic that Burmans with Rohingyas and Karens and Kanchins and Nagas are intricate issue for political leaders. So these are the some problems in it that Myanmar, Tibet, and Bhutan. The political system are also accordingly continuing with some problems. Bhutan has the system of monarchy. Bhutan Raja, which is introducing the democratic reforms. A new constitution has been framed, which has made the provision for the establishment of a democratic constitutional monarchy in accordance with the principle of hereditary succession. England, the establishment of a parliament consisting of the monarchs, 25-member national council in the upper house, 47 national assembly lower house, so on. The Bhutan political system, civil Tibet political system. On the other hand, Tibet is occupied by the communist China. When the Chinese invaded Tibet in 1950, Tibet leaders were forced to sign the 17-point that agreement. China agreement kala Tibet जो religious leader 17 point agreement in 1951, they are surrendering Taiwan's independence to China. So, however, under the agreement, China gave a number of undertakings, including promises to maintain the existing political system to Tibet, to maintain the function of Dalai Lama, to protect freedom of religion and the monasteries, and to reform from compulsory reform. So these undertakings were entirely violated subsequently by China. Thus, the government of Tibet was entitled to repudiate the agreement as they did in 1959. Today, the International Commission of the Jurists report 1997 ordered that the Tibetans are people under the alien subjugation. Tibetans are people under alien subjugation who are entitled under the international law to the right of self-determination, by which they can freely determine their political status. The Tibetan people have not exercised this right, which requires a free and genuine expression of their will. Similarly, Myanmar also. म्यांमार में से भाई प्रोब्लेम होती कहवा कथा तिबेत हो कि म्यांमार हो कि भूटान तेणु भूटान एवं जो तिबेत को चाइना सब बेले कौन कर दे आर क्रिएटिंग दैट नॉइज द म्यांमार ऑन द अदर हैंड इज अंडर द मिलिटरी रूल एंड दे हैव एस्टैब्लिश्ड एन अथॉरिटेरियन पॉलिटिकल स्ट्रक्चर टू परपेट्यूट देयर रूल. State Peace and Development Council, led by the general, then supported the regimentation in which there is no respect for human rights in the democracy. So thousands of political prisoners are detained since 1988. Ethnic minorities have been that persecuted, and men, women, and children are forced to work for the regime to construct railways, roadways, and dams and other projects. There is repression, and therefore thousands of people have deserted their homes. So the military rulers are trying to incorporate the provisions of that Duifensis and is adopted in Indonesia under the Suharto. However, the Suharto had neither that abrogated the 1945 Constitution nor the election of the two houses of parliament after 5 years. So here is the political system has generated the violation of basic rights of life, liberty, and property of the people. So these are the problems. And these three states, they want to reform their political system, their particularly law and order situation. So they are trying to that reform their political scenario through movement. So there are that undercurrents for reform in Bhutan, Tibet, Myanmar, because of the several domestic and external challenges. The culture generated by the globalization in the 21st century demands liberal democratic system. But you see what happened? We can't demand 21st century, the free trade, human rights, and environmental protection, everything. The developing countries have to set standards to cope with the challenges and introduce reforms according to exploit the opportunities in the new world order. Again, there is also a threat of international terrorism led by Al-Qaeda, the Jihadi, the Taliban, or the like. A new ISIS and a new culture has to be evolved in order to face those challenges through political system, educational curriculum, and the ideals, so that the younger generation remain immune from the virus, from the communal and also the fanatic elements. So at last we'll see the within the 5 minutes, the relevance of Gandhi's Tibet, Myanmar, and Bhutan. There is a deep impact of a Buddhist philosophy in the social life of people in Tibet, Bhutan, and Myanmar. The broad meaning of Buddhism is not only the confined to Sangha, but it covers all aspects of humanism, internationalism, and eternal peace. But Mahatma Gandhi has taken numerous ideas from Buddhism and hence his political philosophy has relevance for the struggling masses in the Buddhist societies. Gandhi had given the ideals of Ramarajya, which signed great respect for human values. It was a system in which there was to be no oppressor and no that oppressed. His Ramarajya was to give equal opportunities to all the people and set an example of civil society worth that emulate. ବର୍ତ୍ତମାନ ଯେଉଁ ସିଭିଲ ସୋସାଇଟି ରାଷ୍ଟ୍ର ସହିତ ମୋଲଚାଲ କରି ସାଧାରଣ ଲୋକଙ୍କୁ କିଭଳି ଭାବରେ ଅଧିକାର ଦେଇପାରୁଛି ବା ସୁବିଧା ସୁଯୋଗ ଦେଇପାରୁଛି. So the powers of the government were to be decentralized and all the villages were to be self-ruled and vibrant. Gandhi was also an exponent of the concept of unity in diversity, where all the ethnic groups and races were to be treated without any discrimination because he has accepted the secularism. That diversity ରହିବ, the diversity ଭିତରେ ମଧ୍ୟ ଆମେ unity. So Tibet is under an alien system. The communist China has occupied it, and any opposition to its governance is ruthlessly suppressed. Strategically, the government has a superior power, and the changes cannot come through violent means. Similarly, Myanmar is firmly under the control of the military. ଏବେ ତ ଯେମିତି ଚାଇନାର ରେଜିମ୍ ଭିତରେ ଅଛି, ଏଠି ମଧ୍ୟ ମିଲିଟାରୀ ରେଜିମ୍ ଅଛି Myanmar. And every move against it by the opposition forces is unable to weaken the hold of the military. However, if there is proper mobilization of public opinion and if there is united action to oppose the imposed political system, the oppressive establishment would be compelled to address their grievances. All this requires the support of an able leadership and leaders who can lead the people for renaissance and reformation. The Gandhian path is difficult to pursue. Again, I am telling that the Gandhian path is difficult to pursue, but in view of the presence of a well-armed and a strong adversary, this is the only pragmatic alternative to change the society and the politics in those countries. So, with this, the Gandhi's non-cooperation movement, civil disobedience movement, or quit Indian movement against the colonial rulers were non-violent and successful to arouse the masses. It generated the patriotic ideas to throw out the colonial rule. The essential ways through which the movement were launched were not only through demonstrations but also through appropriate literature, dance, drama, short stories, and various other activities. The religion and religious symbols were extensively used by Gandhiji to mobilize support. What we have that but although the dissident leaders in Tibet, Myanmar are using religion and religious symbols, the political masters are unwilling to give up. The international society has not been able to influence China to hold the act of the self-determination in Tibet or free and fair election in Myanmar. Thus, the civil societies in those countries have to build up the pressure for the democratic changes and a peaceful coexistence. And that is through truth and non-violence. And truth and non-violence, which is the core technique of Gandhian approach to the peace and the conflict resolution, and that should be generate favorable environment for political resolution and bring about the positive outcomes. Thus, from the series of the topic included in the MGPE-008, thus Gandhian method of non-cooperation, mass mobilization and non-violent means becomes relevant for conflict resolution. So out of this series of the topics, we realize the Gandhian methods of the truth, non-violence means becomes relevant for conflict resolution. Of course, and we just acknowledge the Nuakhali is an incident. It was not succeeded, but it has given a chance to that continue is a that communal harmony, we can say. But apart from all this, the Gandhian that approach to peace and conflict resolution and its methods, techniques, and the different that actions has its relevance, which cannot be avoided. Thank you all, dear learner. So with this, I want to end the course MGP-008. Thank you all. Okay, sir. Hello. 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 प्रभास सर ପିଲାମାନେ କିଏ କିଛି ପଚାରିବ କି? Hello. Is there any doubt?
Sir.
Sir.
Yes.
So now will the of the class that there is a problem, sir, in my internal problem, so I couldn't express you in the mid of the session. Okay. Is there any